Yeah. Okay, the Jentry Podcast. I know that you will be loving it. We here to break it down so that you start to understand your local government. Who are the leaders? Time to get active, do something about it. Dealing with jobs, the workforce, and affordable housing. Motivate and inspire. Elevate, take it higher. For the next generation. Knowledge is power for your community. Giving you the info that you really need. Time to make a change and a difference. Tune in, don't miss it. It's the Jentry. The Jentry Podcast. The Jentry Podcast. Making a change, switching it up.
Hello, and welcome to the Jentry Podcast. Today, we have an incredible guest. I'm your host, Jonathan Mason, but more importantly, we have Joe Fawcett, who is the City Administrator of Perrysburg, Ohio. Joe brings an incredible list of jobs, but more importantly, of service. He's had 2 tours in Iraq. He's been with other municipalities and counties, and he has an incredible background, and I'm so excited to have Joe here. But more than that, he is a devoted husband and a father. So, Joe, first and foremost, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jonathan. Thank you very much for having me today.
Well, we appreciate you being here. You've done so much for this country and you've done so much for Ohio. So we're excited to get into it. But before we do, so just give us a little taste. What is the special sauce of Perrysburg? What makes it the best place to live in the United States?
That's a great question. Perrysburg has so many wonderful attributes and things about us. And we're located up in Northwest Ohio, just south of Toledo. Toledo is the largest metropolitan area to us. They're about 15 minutes north. So we're located along the Maumee River. So we've got riverfront access as well as a lot of infrastructure that are going our way with regards to I-75. We've got the 80-90 Turnpike in Ohio and then a couple state routes going through here. But more importantly, Perrysburg brings a unique blend of tradition and valuing history and where kind of our roots and where we come from, but embracing a exciting and vibrant future. My mom moved up here in the early 90s, so I've been kind of a resident of Perrysburg around here for a long time. And since she moved here, the population has doubled. And I think that has a direct connection to kind of that fun and unique atmosphere that Perrysburg brings of we have a amazing history, but we are geared towards the future. Perrysburg's experienced a significant residential growth as well as growth in the commercial areas. That attract places. But then we also have wonderful parks, miles of multi-use paths that run along the river and then connect neighborhoods and shopping complexes. So Perrysburg is a fantastic place to live. It's affordable and it's kind of like everyday America.
Joe, I love that. The one thing I don't hear too often is a place is affordable.
Oh, yeah.
So that definitely makes me happy for the people of Ohio and for the people of America, because I talk to people nationally. We're always looking for places that are affordable, but still have those amenities and have the culture. You guys since I've been studying you guys, I've seen a lot of economic growth and a lot of even population growth. So I know I'm super excited to see how you guys are managing that. But before we even get there, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you, Joe. So when you were a child, did you always know that you wanted to be a city administrator? Did you know public service was in your future? What was childhood like and how did we get here?
Yeah, that's a great question. I grew up watching my dad. My dad was also in the military as well as serving his community. He was in the Army, active Army, and then in the Army Reserve for a number of years. He retired in 1995 after 24 years in the Army. And during that time, he joined the city of Bowling Green, which is a community just south of Perrysburg. And he ended up serving 18 years as their municipal administrator or city manager. And I got to watch kind of him and the joy and the pride that he had with that job of knowing that he's working on behalf of his neighbors and behalf of our community and positioning BG to be a strong, vibrant community. So I kind of watched, I guess, the satisfaction that he got of working alongside with a bunch of dedicated people for the betterment of Bowling Green. I suppose at a very young age, I did want to become a city administrator. I didn't know it until I got out of the Army, but that kind of watching him kind of led me to my first major decision point, which was to join the Ohio Army National Guard as a high school junior. So I enlisted at the age of 17. And then when most kids are enjoying a summer break between their junior and senior year, I went to basic training, came home, drilled with my unit that senior year, and then went into Army ROTC as a college freshman down at Bowling Green State University. And then 9/11 hit and kind of the world changed. So shortly after college, I began my active career in the U.S. Army. I moved, boy, oh boy, 7 different times over my time on active duty. As you mentioned, I served in Iraq twice, both times up in Mosul, which is one of their 3 largest cities in Iraq. And the second time I was a military advisor. So I was linked in with a small little unit training Iraqis and trying to get them prepared for eventually taking the mission on themselves. After active duty, my wife and I moved back to the Northwest Ohio area where I got my master's degree in public administration, and then went on to the Bowling Green Municipal Court as a probation officer. And then I went to the county commissioner's office here in Wood County as the assistant county administrator, which was an interesting role for me and different for the county. I was the first assistant county administrator that we had here. So I kind of got to blaze my own trail, but it was fun because I was able to write the book of what that position does and maybe doesn't do in some circumstances, but it was a wonderful opportunity. And then once my dad retired, his replacement ended up hiring me as the assistant municipal administrator for the city of Bowling Green, and I served there for about 8 years. And then this opportunity up in Perrysburg kind of came up, and it was kind of a no-brainer. Perrysburg's, like I said, a wonderful place. And I've been fortunate to be the city administrator for a little over 2 years now. And I like to say it's been both a humbling experience as well as kind of a, one of those, really kind of amazing experiences to work with everybody up here and kind of continue the forward and positive momentum that this community has had for a number of years.
Wow, Joe. I remember when we first spoke, and I was like, I don't hear this too often. It was like, and I shared my background and how my father was an entrepreneur, and I just ate it all up, wanted to be just like him, and then ended up being an entrepreneur myself. It's like you were in the family business. The family business looks a little bit different, but what you're around and what you're accustomed to, how that can blaze a path that you don't even know is there. Like you said, it's like, yeah, I guess I always did, but it wasn't until after I left the Army. But that is amazing. You got to follow in your father's footsteps, but then also blaze your own path in a way, go into different municipalities. And I have to ask, because I won't say it's a point of contention, but I always get very, very interesting answers. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, what is a city administrator? And then after that, I'm going to follow up and ask, what is the difference between city administration and county administration?
Sure, that's a great question. So a city administrator is very similar to a city manager. So as a city administrator, I'm the chief operating officer. So I manage the day-to-day operations of the city, and I report to the mayor, who's the chief executive officer. So that's probably the biggest difference between a city administrator and a city manager, is typically the COO role versus CEO role. But, by and large, we all do the same thing. We work together for the betterment of the community that you serve. But as the chief operating officer, my job is to help the staff get the tools and resources they need to be successful. I translate the strategic goals and objectives that our elected officials have chosen, and then kind of put those into action. So we create action plans, work with department and division heads to identify, the subordinate tasks and objectives that need to be achieved in order to realize that desired end state. But, by and large, I've always said my job is to give my staff and our team the tools that they need to be successful, and then I get out of their way very quickly, because we have a talented group of folks here that work on behalf of our residents. The biggest difference between city and county government is, in the state of Ohio at least, is at the county, you are an agent of the state at the county level. So they largely execute state level statutory requirements, such as, operating and managing job and family services, housing various elected officials like judges at the county common pleas court, as well as things like housing the treasurer's office, the engineer's office, and the county commissioners, who the county administrator works for. They're the general administrative body of the county. So they pass budgets, they manage the commissioner's office and their staff with all of their different departments. And then they work with their fellow elected officials for the betterment of the county. They focus in on county economic development, which is always a good thing. So at the city level, particularly in Ohio, we have two forms of government, two types of government here, statutory and charter. Statutory is very similar to county in that you operate under the state statutes and how cities can be organized. And then the charter form of government is very similar to the United States in that the city charter is kind of that founding document that our community passed that says and spells out how we're different from statutory cities. So it identifies how we're going to govern ourselves, how laws are passed, and those sorts of things. So the difference between the city government and the county government is really at the city level, you are much closer to the ground. We kind of say, this is where the rubber meets the road here of connecting residents to solutions to their issues and their problems. So, on any day, I might be working on infrastructure projects with, regarding sewer and water. I might be talking to the engineers about paving projects. I might be talking about economic development activities and ways that we can diversify our tax base. It could be, other things like parks and recreational programming and all sorts of things. So they're very similar in nature, city and county administration, but they're also very different at the same time.
That makes a ton of sense. And thank you for breaking down the delineation between statute and charter cities. That definitely adds another layer of complexity, but very interesting. Now, one of the things you brought up in there were the strategic goals and how you break those into action plans. What are the strategic goals of Perrysburg right now?
Yeah. So one of the I'd say we've got probably three very, very large objectives, in our immediate future. The first, when I first got here, we were looking at a $7 million downtown revitalization project. And it's not just a streetscape project, which is a pretty decent sized undertaking, especially in a 200-year-old downtown. But more importantly, it was a way to improve ADA accessibility along the public right of way. And when you think about that, you think of, sidewalks and, curb ramps and streets and stuff like that. But when you go into an historic area and building elevations are different, and you have some with a step up, you have some with a step down, you have some with two steps up, and then you look at that, down the street or down the sidewalk, so to speak, and you try to figure out how do I get people with mobility issues into these structures, or at least get them to the point where they actually can access those structures is really where it gets difficult. So our, that first kind of large goal we put into motion when I got here in late 2023, I was kind of visioning with the community of what do we want the downtown to look like? And we laid out, various options, and we gave people an opportunity to kind of do the sticker voting where they can vote on the picture that they like the best. And then we compiled all that information into a streetscape project that began this year. And that'll continue into 2026. So again, that's a $7 million project. One thing that I'm most proud of is that the city isn't asking the residents to pay more money towards that. We're using existing tax dollars. So we are not charging front footage assessments or any sort of cost sharing with businesses or property owners. The second very large strategic objective or goal for us is to improve city facilities. In the same vein, Perrysburg has been very cost effective with their facilities. And we've kind of outgrown the facilities that we have. And when I got on board, they were looking at about a $70 million facilities plan or project that they needed to execute, but they couldn't quite figure out if it was the right fit for them. That's a significant lift for a community of our size. So we came together as a team, and what I think did what good teams do, and we start batting around the problem and figure out ways that we can solve it. And kind of in a fortunate way, one of our community business partners came to us and said, "Hey, we've got this 26,000 square foot facility that we're looking to sell, but we don't want to just sell to anybody. We're wondering if the city could use it." And me and the team very quickly said, "Yep, we could definitely use that." So we were able to buy the property, and we're in the planning process to then renovate that property. And what we've kind of come up with is it's a way to kind of leave some of the pressure on some of the other facilities by moving some of the more public facing departments and divisions into that facility in order to make what I call kind of a one-stop shop. I think one of the goals that government should have is to make it easy for people to do business with them. So let's do that. So we're going to be moving our income tax division, planning and zoning, and the Department of Public Utilities out there, all very, very public facing departments. But from a resident's perspective, if I have to do business with the city, I know that I most likely will go to that facility, which will then allow us to move kind of the puzzle pieces around and do some other renovations projects, all told bringing down that $70 million figure down to $24 million is our current estimate. So much, much more affordable. And then the third one, and this is a much bigger one, is economic development. Perrysburg has been extremely fortunate to grow over the years, and it's grown primarily in residential development as well as commercial development. One way in which we have not grown at all, frankly, is industrial manufacturing growth. So council's request of me and the mayor's guidance was we need to identify ways in which we can broaden the tax base. We can open up economic development to a much broader perspective. And we need to figure out ways to lessen the property tax impacts on our residents from schools, as well as be a better partner or a bigger partner with schools and, figuring out this funding formula when it comes to property tax, as well as ways in which to stabilize our utility rates. Well, industrial manufacturing growth is kind of that solution to all of these different concerns that we're hearing. And I'd like to say that our efforts in that regard, we're about to see some of the fruits of that labor, and I'm optimistic about it. But I think it's reflective of kind of Northwest Ohio and Wood County in particular, which is, we call it the Wood County way. And that's where you kind of knock down the political subdivision barriers and we say, we're all in this together. How do we work together towards this kind of desired end state as a collective? So working with county partners to figure out, okay, where could we build large industrial manufacturing business parks? And how would that look? And who would need to be involved? And then getting together to start putting the pieces together, and then ultimately work with the property owners to say, here's our vision. Would you like to be a partner in this? And like I said, I think we're very close to that. I hope in the next couple months that we have some announcements, but that is without a doubt the biggest strategic item that we're working on currently.
Wow, you guys are definitely doing a lot, but very important things. Making downtown accessible, like that is something that is so important to everyone. People that have grown up there, they want it to be a place that everybody can utilize all the services, patronize the businesses, and just be part of the community. And then that one-stop shop. I'm a community resident myself, not in Perrysburg, but I do love when I have to go down there, I can just knock all the things that I need to get done out quickly. I'll definitely give a shout out to Raleigh on that. They're actually pretty good about that. But and then the last one is so big, trying to diversify that tax base. One of the contracts that I just finished up was working in a county, and they're similar. Ton of residential and not as much industrial manufacturing. And that weighs, it's like you're burdening the people that you're trying to support. And that can be difficult. But one thing you mentioned, and I have heard this, I've talked to a lot of people in Ohio, regionalism is strong where you guys are. And I love to hear that. How can we as county partners figure out this solution? Because maybe it's not all of the industrial manufacturing going to be in Perrysburg, and maybe it doesn't need to be. So how can we collectively work together? And I think definitely in Ohio, but across the nation, we're starting to see that now. Another thing we're starting to see are the sometimes negative aspects of economic growth and population growth. How are you guys kind of looking ahead, or even currently protecting against things like displacement or housing, the opposite of what's happening, but housing unaffordability?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that is not one that's easily answered. I think the solutions to those type of situations is very organic. And what I mean by that is it really comes down to the individual community, because no two solutions are going to be the same for the different communities. I come from Bowling Green and Perrysburg, so I can kind of see the different perspectives, and the struggles that one community has, the other community definitely doesn't have, and vice versa. Here in Perrysburg, I'd like to think we are a fairly affordable community, but there are still struggles with that, and we can't ignore it. And My vision or view of goal of government is that we set the conditions. We kind of help with through zoning code. We help through identifying and stabilizing utility rates. We conduct certain economic development activities in order to do what you just mentioned, which is broadening and diversifying the economic base, which hopefully stabilizes things like property taxes. But a big component of that is smart, responsible growth, because growth in and of itself isn't necessarily a good thing, particularly when you see it through the lens of public administration and the impacts on services. So you think about the firefighters, fire equipment, which is extremely expensive, police officers, paramedics and EMS, as well as things like public works or public service and garbage collection, street maintenance, sidewalk maintenance, and those types of things. So residential development is very important, and I think it's critical to growth and it's critical to a vibrant community. But all residential development is not, because then your services are overtaxed, which means your taxes go up, which makes your area unaffordable or hard to or difficult for people to afford. So all of these things go together. And I think it goes back to the old adage of too much of one thing might be bad, but a little bit of a lot of different things is probably much better. So that's kind of what we're looking at here is let's not stop developing with residences. Let's not stop commercial development, but we need to kind of turn the needle a little bit so that we're doing a lot of different things, to include focusing more on that industrial manufacturing, like I talked about, which helps kind of broaden everything out.
That Joe, thank you for that. And obviously, like I said, I speak to a ton of people. If you had an easy answer for addressing displacement and housing affordability, sir, you would probably be somebody's trillionaire and sitting on the beach right now. So I knew I was asking a lofty question, but I do like to hear that you're thoughtful about how you're thinking through growth and how it's not always just a net positive thing. Like when you think of, I know across different places, once you hit a certain threshold, you have to then bring certain things in house, or you want to. You have to beef up on police, fire, everything. So it definitely comes with, I think there's benefits and negatives, or benefits and challenges to everything in the world. So growth is obviously one of those things. So housing growth, that's two of the big ones. Infrastructure is another one that comes up quite often. Where are you guys at with infrastructure? I know you said you had a 200-year-old downtown. Are there any capital improvement things that are coming up on the horizon, or you guys have done those pretty recently?
Well, that's kind of one of those things that never ends. If you're not maintaining your system, you're neglecting your system, which means down the road, you're going to be paying for it. Perrysburg is fortunate to own its own wastewater treatment plant. And that sounds funny. And normal people are like, you want to own a wastewater treatment plant? Yes, you definitely want to own that. You want to own the utility because then you can control the costs. You can also control things like how the system is maintained. So yes, we have probably the better part of $50 million worth of improvements that are planned at the plant. It is not cheap to clean water, but it is critically important, as well as maintaining the system that feeds that plant, as well as maintaining the system that conveys clean, drinkable water. All of that is critically important, and all of that is, kind of one of our core functions as government. We have when you boil it down, government provides the services that people can't reasonably provide for themselves. I think, water, drinking water, stormwater, sewer, police, fire, those sorts of things, that's a core mission of local government. So yes, Perrysburg has a number of very large capital projects on the horizon, both in terms of utilities, but also roadway and community amenities that are equally important, because that's kind of what creates that vibrant place that people want to live. So parks and multi-use paths connecting in these locations is extremely important. One of the things that we did last year is we went through a planning process to create an active transportation plan of identifying, okay, where are our community amenities around the map? Where are they? How are they connected to exist currently? And then what are the barriers that are in place right now? And how do we get over those barriers? So putting together a large plan for how we're going to make improvements to then connect in those points of interest. Places like schools, parks, the downtown, businesses, and that sort of thing.
That's incredible, and it's so important. When you think of infrastructure, you definitely think of the big capital improvements, the utilities, but sometimes, yeah, you don't think about what actually makes the community the community. Like when I'm thinking of my community, I love the fact that I can walk to a park. Like that is like with young children, like that is so important. And you have the connectivity to other places. We have a greenway and things like that. So that is awesome that you guys are on top of that. And I tip my hat to you. I've seen, talking to different people and even just doing research, sometimes infrastructure can be easily kicked down the road or kick the can by especially by and I don't want to point the finger, but just by electeds, like just based on the benefits and the costs of doing those things. So I'm glad to see that you are focused on that and maintaining those. Now, I've heard a lot of positive things from Perrysburg and from you, and then even from my research. But I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask, is there one challenge? And I'll give you unlimited budget, unlimited time, unlimited people to work on it. If there was just one challenge that you could just snap your finger and change, what would that challenge be?
Man, that is tough. But if you're giving me an unlimited budget and as many people as I want, um, I think if I could snap my fingers and magically improve all of the underground infrastructure, I'd probably start
Ooh.
there. That is probably hundreds of millions of dollars worth of equipment and materials. But like you said, underground infrastructure isn't exciting until you turn on the tap and there's no water coming out. I would also say if we could use the underground infrastructure money that you're giving me and the staff, then let's lay in pipe to plan and prepare ourselves for the next 50 years, particularly in the jobs corridor, so that when an industrial manufacturer developer comes in and says, I'd like to join your community as a business partner, I can say, I have a business park for you, and it has a road going to the site and it has plenty of utilities. Come on, we want you here. So I guess that'd be my answer.
Nice. That is a big one. And you get to the heart of the issue. It's not quote unquote sexy, but when things don't work, you get a million calls and everybody is haunting your house. But I even thought how you got clever with that. It's like, this is to preserve and make sure that everything's working, but also let's utilize this as almost a recruiting tool. We are ready for you guys. You guys can come right in. Everything's all set up. So I thought that was a very clever. Now, shifting gears a little bit, I know I had you on the hot seat for a second. A lot of our viewers are younger, and a lot of them are either thinking about a career in public service or just working to be more civically aware. Do you have any advice for just young people, maybe in how they can make a change or how they could potentially get involved in the process?
Yeah, that's a great question too. Well, getting new blood into the system is critical. The system doesn't function if people don't come in and say, "Hey, I'd like to participate too." So advice for anybody thinking about or wanting to or kind of toying with the idea of getting involved, do it. Go to your community's website, look at volunteering opportunities that you may have. Every community has a board or commission that you can join. And sometimes it's as easy as just filling out a piece of paper and checking some boxes that says, I'm interested in these types of activities. And then they hold on to your application until a vacancy occurs, and then you get your shot to join. But as you mentioned, the real big thing is just getting people involved. One of the things that I've kind of noticed over the years that I've been doing this is when residents get frustrated with their government, it's usually because of a lack of understanding. And that's usually driven by the organization's inability to engage with its own residents and the public. So we got to tell our story and we got to get people involved so they see what we're doing and they can kind of see how things are operating behind the green curtain, so to speak. And then offer up new ideas of way to do business. Government is not static and it cannot be static. We've got to grow and we've got to morph ourselves and adapt and adjust to what the community is telling us. So if somebody's interested in local government or just kind of seeing how things work, call and schedule a meeting with your county administrator, city manager, whatever you want to call it, and sit down with that person, ask questions, and don't ever think that you're wasting that person's time, because that's a big part of the job is talking with people and communicating. The second thing is, if somebody is interested in public service as a profession, I would applaud you and say, it is a noble profession. It is not one for the faint of heart, certainly, but it's amazing. My dad was right many years ago when he said, no other profession that gives you the opportunity to work with your neighbors, for your neighbors, and for a better community that you live in. We're positioned uniquely to kind of help shape the future of our communities. And um, at the end of the day, I know that when I walk the streets of Bowling Green, I can see him looking at things that he was a part of and the pride that's on his face. And, my dream is someday walking down the street with my kids and them seeing the same thing of a vibrant, strong downtown Perrysburg and these facilities that sufficiently service our community and the different things that we've put into place or we're doing as a team to grow in a very responsible and thoughtful manner. So public sector is not easy, but it is a very noble profession. And I don't use that term lightly. And it is critical because somebody's got to manage this sort of thing. And you've got to have somebody who is thoughtful, who is humble, and is willing to kind of remove their ego for the betterment of of a particular community. So if you have the itch, so to speak, explore it, ask questions, and just kind of see where it leads you.
Joe, I appreciate that, and I promise that was not a self-serving question, but I do have to say we're actually launched a Gentry Future Leaders panel, which we're
I love
bringing
it.
those government leaders, public servants like yourself, to speak to the students. And one of the things that even I, the person that is setting it up, was so surprised that, or not surprised, but just like, wow, how many people would take their time? And this is like the event surveyed, 700 students, and they were like, it needs to be on Sunday. I'm like, oh shoot, now I got to get people to come on the weekend. So many people have signed up to be mentors and to speak, and it shows the heart that you all have, because it is a maybe not an easy profession, but it's very fulfilling. And the fact that people want to come in on a Sunday and give their time to just spark the minds of that next generation just kind of speaks to the heart of the profession. So I definitely want to just thank you for sharing that message, because it even hit me just like, wow, yeah, people care about the roles that they're in. So
Absolutely. That's
now
great.
taking it to the next level, 25 years from now, what are people saying about their community, about Perrysburg?
Well, I hope that what they're saying is the city government did a fantastic job of problem solving and planning for future growth. I would love for people to look back and say, man, look at that huge industrial manufacturing business park that's attractive with high tech, high paying jobs where someone can grow up here, they could go to school here, and then they can work here and have a fantastic life with a great job for a family of their own. I hope that in 25 years, they can say, I'm lucky to live in a community that is thinking beyond itself, who embraces the fact that we've got close neighbors and that we can share resources for the betterment of everybody. And I guess, overall, I hope that in 25 years, just like I hope today, frankly, people can think and say, my government works for me and not for itself, and that they care about my life and my family.
That's awesome. And I have no doubt that you guys are going to continue on that path and make that reality possible. Now, we have reached the end of our interview, but I'd like to give you an opportunity. Is there anything that you want to say either to young people, to just people in general? Is there anything that we left out on?
No, I think you asked a lot of very great and thorough questions, and I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you. Thank you for reaching out to me and giving me the opportunity to speak with you and your audience today, and maybe tell some of the great things that we're doing here as a team in Perrysburg. I feel very fortunate to be where I'm at, working with the people that I do. Like all things, it's not a one-man show, one person, but we have a fantastic team here of professionals. We have a fantastic team of elected officials who all work together, who have a community mindset. So I feel very fortunate to have a great city council, a great and supportive mayor, and then a wonderful staff helping me and helping all of us be successful. So thank you.
The pleasure is definitely all mine. And I'm excited to continue to watch the journey. A lot of the things that you guys are doing so forward thinking. So I just can't wait to just see everything come to fruition. I can't wait to see that, advanced industrial park that's going to
Yeah.
be on Perrysburg or located very, very close from everyone here at Jentry. Joe, I'd like to just say thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time and being thoughtful with your words and sharing the good word about Perrysburg. And to all the viewers, as always, this has been the Jentry Podcast. Again, we had Joe Fawcett, who is the City Administrator of Perrysburg, Ohio. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Jonathan.